All right. Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Scott Boruff. Scott, so great to have you on the show today.
Kevin, glad to be here, excited, and looking forward to our conversation.
Same. I'll tell
Yeah,
you, you and I got to connect already.
yeah.
You know what? First, I should just give a shout out to Katrina and the folks over at
Oh, wow.
the man. I was like, those guys are so awesome. The Broadcaster Authority, and Katrina. What's
Yeah,
really cool about
yeah,
Katrina is that I've got this really great relationship with her. And now, whenever I get an email from her, it's kind of like Christmas time because I
yeah,
don't know what's going to be in there, but I'm like, it's going to be good.
yeah,
And so she has sent some amazing guests for
yeah.
this podcast, and that's how you and I got introduced. She told me about you, and I took a look. They share a one sheet when they do
Okay,
that. And I just take
okay.
a look at that and I'm like, oh man, I'd love to have a conversation with Scott and get to know him a little bit. And of course, you and I got to do that. And and
Yeah,
and now here we are.
yeah,
And what a great way to meet somebody new, Scott,
yeah.
which is through somebody that you already have a great relationship with. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. No, it is. And they're great people. I spoke out there at the Wind deal, and just she's got an amazing team and company, and she's filling us up. So it's good, exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she's
That's
got a great
awesome.
story herself.
Yes,
Yeah,
for sure. For
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Well, what I'd like to do is I just want to start by just digging into your story a little bit.
Okay.
And I'll just,
Yeah.
first question I'll ask you will be a really easy one. Scott, what do you do and who do you serve?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I always break it down into two categories. So
Okay.
the first half of my life, I did real estate development,
Okay.
commercial development, borrowing money from banks. When you mention I want to go buy a piece of vacant land to a bank, typically they run and jump underneath the couch and hide from you, right? So always the hard to finance deal. So capital finance and structure, and that was my first half of my life from
Okay.
25 years old to 45 years old is developing shopping centers, apartments, golf courses, convention centers. Just my family was in real estate and insurance and development. So I just kind of followed that natural trail.
Okay.
And then, as I say, the second half of my life, I met a special person that literally, I always tell people, even my kids, like, sometimes you meet somebody in life that changes the whole trajectory in one
Mhm.
in one meeting. And so I met that guy, and I don't know if we had this conversation before, but I'd watched the original Wall Street movie
Oh,
where
I
the guy
remember
had,
that movie.
he had his big phone walking down the beach saying, I can remember when 800,000 was a good year, now it's just a good day.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, what does that guy do? And that was in investment banking, M&A, private equity. I said, I want to do that one day. So it literally, the second half of my life, I've spent that literally taking private companies public
Okay.
via the bootstrap your way to the New York Stock Exchange. So I've had the pleasure of ringing the Nasdaq bell and the New York Stock Exchange bell, and just kind of building that team that understands that story and how to do it. It's kind of like baking a cake. You can, if you don't have all the right ingredients, it'll never rise. And so the second half of my life has raised over $1 billion worth of debt and equity, taking private companies public, and then running them as an investment banker and as a CEO. And so
Okay.
so now the last phase of the life, I'm, got a private equity fund, and that we run just a small private equity fund, about 100
Okay.
million bucks. And
Okay.
we got Safe Space Global AI, which was, I'm a CEO of that, which is, we're saving lives with
Okay.
AI technology. So been
Wow.
after that for about 7 years, building the product that solves a global problem, building the team to execute on the product, and then building the board, and again, preparing to uplist to the New York Stock Exchange American in the future, hopefully this year.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
kind of busy times.
For
Yeah,
sure. For
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
So did you get in to doing what you do originally because of watching the movie Wall Street? Is
I,
that what
I actually did. That's my favorite movie, and I
I
didn't
love
know
that
how to.
movie too, and I love the second one too.
Yeah, I love the second one, and I really didn't. Again, didn't understand how to do it, didn't know
Uh-huh.
what to do it, didn't have the training to do it, and just met a guy named Ron Berkovitz through one of my best friends for my whole life, Charlie Lobetty, which was our high school football, basketball, sports. He went on and built his career as an awesome audit tax CPA. And he's like, man, you'd be a great investment banker because you just love raising capital and doing deals and structured deals and crazy finance deals. And I need to introduce you to somebody. So he did. And this was the craziest guy ever. And this guy can move mountains. And so that was great. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
good. That was kind of the start of the second phase of my life. And now I'm just living the dreams through all the successes and failures. We don't never fail. We just learn. But I've had enough learning experiences where I'm getting tired of learning at 62. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, what inspires you most about the work that you get to do, Scott?
It's really just kind of, I think it comes back to my family, like trying to, finding a problem and then
Okay.
finding a solution to the problem. So I've had like 22 exits in businesses, and some
Okay.
mostly good, some not good, but
Mhm.
there were learning experiences. But just if you look at whatever business you're in, again, 22 exits. I'm a generalist. So I'm in real estate and insurance development, public companies, private companies, like a private equity guy. Like you look at a bunch of stuff
Mhm.
and just trying to find that nugget in what the problem is. One of the
Mhm.
first deals was insurance. 30 years ago, insurance agents worked 8 to 5.
Okay.
But as I was growing an insurance agency platform, I found out that car salesmen sold most of their cars from 5 o'clock at night to 9 o'clock at night. I was like,
Mm.
wow, there's a void there. So we
Mhm.
had a bunch of agents that said, all right, we're going to work from 9 in the morning until 9 at night. And at 8 o'clock at night, if the car salesman delivering a Ford Mustang to a 16-year-old because he's all ready to buy it, he couldn't sell it to him because he couldn't get insurance. Well, our company, we could bind the insurance, quote the insurance, take the deposit, sell it, and they could sell cars. So it really changed the trajectory, changed, basically the whole insurance industry where now you can get insurance online 24/7,
Yeah.
365, and it's all different. But
Yeah.
you did that with several, like the sign company. We grew a sign company from scratch to 10 million in revenue in less than 3 years. But the problem with all the sign companies out there still to this date is neon. So neon lighting inside the signs is
Uh-huh.
like a craft. It's like an art. And so in Knoxville, Tennessee, we literally, said, all right, so if neon is the bottleneck, because all these sign companies said, well, we'll deliver this McDonald's sign on January 1st, but they never would because they were always behind on the neon.
Okay.
So we built a sign company, said, all right, we're going to focus on the neon. So we had two neon plants running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to not only serve our needs, but to serve our competitors' needs. So we solved
Mhm.
our problem where we could deliver on time and grow. And our competitors gave us that steady paycheck, which was a big publicly traded company. It's like, hey,
Mhm.
you can make all these McDonald's that we can deliver. And so that was kind of a good base, and then grew it and sold it as well. So kind
Wow.
of just finding little nuggets, little holes, and
Yep. Yep.
and trying to, be different.
And you know what? And that's what it's all about. Kind of like what you said, So you find out that, so many car sales are sold between 5 p.m. and 9 p.m.
Yeah.
And so there's a window. It's like, well, if that's where most of the sales take
Yeah.
place,
Yeah.
let's make sure we're doing business in those
Yeah. Oh
hours.
yeah.
And
Yep.
then the whole insurance thing. Well, yeah, the insurance companies they close at 5 o'clock,
They
and
close at five,
so
8. Yeah.
being
Eight
able
to
to have
five.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
having a
it. And,
solution
and
for that.
back in the day, the typical insurance agent had two secretaries up front that were unlicensed and two producers in the back selling the stuff that were licensed. And I
Okay.
said, hey, let's license everybody. Everybody that touches the phone needs to sell. It's
Mhm.
no different. It's just a model that was broken. I'm like, they
Yep.
said, how are you growing so fast? I was like, because we're changing the model. He's just
Yeah.
like, so, again, my dad was in development. He had an insurance agency. They only had, about 400,000 in premium when I took over, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And you get commission on that premium of like 15, 18%. So
Hmm.
you only had about $60,000, $80,000 in total commission to pay bills with. So he brought in 60,000. I looked at my dad. I was like, I thought this was a big agency. He says, no, son, I make my money in the development, but the insurance agency pays all the overhead. So I have no overhead because it pays it all, pays the secretary, pays the rent, utilities, phone, all that stuff. So it gives me time to go out and develop real estate without having that overhead burden on me. So it was kind of nice. And so I said, all right, we're going to license everybody. We're going to change the rules. And that's what we did. It was kind of fun.
Wow. Very
Yeah.
cool. Very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
So, what's you so okay, so you mentioned 22 exits.
Yeah.
So why don't we look? So what is one of those exits that and we
Yeah.
don't necessarily have to name names.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
totally up to
yeah,
you.
the
But
sign company was one, zero to scratch, 0 to 10 million, sold it, made good money. The lesson that I learned with that one, right, is I learned what they call WIP, work in progress.
okay.
And so didn't know what that was. Again, I'm just out there grinding it, college education, but still they don't teach you in college business 101 and the
Yep.
grit, grind, and guts and all that stuff. So I was like, man, we're selling signs, we're making good profit, we're growing, but why don't we have cash? And I was sitting down with my CPA and says, Scott, it's called working capital. It's the one working capital 101. So if you're going to do $10 million a year in revenue as a startup, you need to have $3 million to $3.5 million in cash. And I said, why? He said, well, because it takes money to buy the materials. You got to pay for it cash. It takes money to pay the labor. It takes money to also, and then all of a sudden, every month you're not delivering signs. It may take 45 or 60
Yeah.
days to build that huge $40,000 sign.
Yeah.
And so you got to have work and capital to do that. And depending on how fast you want to grow, the more, you
Yep.
can you can sell yourself out of business. And I
Mhm.
learned that the hard way.
Totally.
So I had four investors, and two of them is like sell, 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 because they got paid money based on how much revenue, the top line.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
other two investors like slow it down, slow it down, slow it down, because we've given you $1.5 million. You don't have three, but you need to sell within your budget.
Yeah.
And that was hard for me to do. Like I like selling, I like finance, I like structure, I like growing companies. And so we compromised 3 years in as like, guys, I'm tired of waking up on Monday morning, having to make payroll from Friday, having to buy materials out of cash. It was just too much burn. So I was actually sold out, exited to my four investors. And they took the
Oh,
company, put more capital into it and grew it up and sold it again. So
okay.
kind of
Okay.
fun, but good for me. Good lesson for
Yeah.
not being in manufacturing. So I've consulted many manufacturers before, and I see the same thing. So you got to know the business process and what it looks like, and
Yep. Yep.
and so that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as entrepreneurs, it's often said that we learn our most valuable lessons from the like less than like what's the right word I'm looking for? The like from maybe some of the biggest mistakes we've made, if
Uh,
we learn our so I would imagine some of your most valuable lessons came from
yes.
exits that wouldn't be considered successful and stuff.
No, no, that's exactly. I had an oil and gas energy company that was the
Okay.
biggest success probably to date, besides Safe Space that's coming in Pitch Equity, where I took a pink sheet company, uh, took over a pink sheet company that was
Okay.
non-reporting. Financials were okay, but it had a good base of like 8 people, like one of the best prolific drillers in the country. He'd been drilling oil and gas wells since he was 17 years old, so he was the best at that in the Tennessee region. And had an accounting staff, had a president, so it had like a good footprint. But they went public via reverse merger and thought they were going to have access to capital. So the CEO didn't like finance, didn't like legal, didn't like raising capital. So all of a sudden he's public via reverse merger, but still don't have access to capital, if that makes sense. And so because he didn't understand how to access it on Wall Street. So me having access to capital, I took over the company, said, all right, we got to get it fully reporting, which we did within 12 months.
Mhm.
So we went from fully reporting, bulletin board. Now we're putting the team in place to make things happen. And then '08 happened and the world fell apart.
Yeah.
Oil and gas went from $120 a barrel down to like $29 a barrel.
Wow.
So for us, it wasn't a big deal because we only had about 800,000 in gross revenue, losing about 800,000 a year and growing that base. So that was kind of tough as we get public. And so like, okay, so it presented like an opportunity. So when the world crashes, it may seem bad for others, but it was good for us. So it gave me the ability to go out and look and find deals that were out there from my investment banking deals. And we acquired a couple companies out of bankruptcy that literally enabled us to go from like 8 barrels a day, 8 barrels of oil and gas a day to like 4,000 plus barrels a day in a period of
Wow.
less than 5 years. Our first acquisition was in Alaska. So we acquired it out of bankruptcy, spent 4 months in bankruptcy court, learned all those lessons that most people in the world don't understand. Like there are no rules in bankruptcy court. Like I had a signed contract to buy these assets, hard money to buy these assets, to close on these assets. And the night before, the bankruptcy trustee calls me and says, Scott, I've got good news and bad news. But granted, I've been doing this for 4 months in bankruptcy court every day, due diligence, due diligence, due diligence, checked every box checkable, raised the capital, had a contract to buy these assets. And the night before, he calls and said, I got good news and bad news. The good news is you can still buy these assets tomorrow. The bad news is we're having an auction tomorrow. So I had these assets bought for like $1.5 million,
Okay.
and he had a bid in from one of the creditors that doubled that bid for like $3.5 million. I'm
Wow.
like, well, how does that work, Your Honor? I've got a contract, hard money, 250,000 cash, non-refundable. I'm not a stalking horse bidder, so I don't get paid if I lose it. I'm just out. And he said, well, that's just how it works. Like what he
Wow.
really should have said in English was, I'm a judge. He has fiduciary responsibility to shareholders. He's doubled the money that the shareholders are going to get. He's doubled the income he's going to get for managing it. And that's how it works. And so I was like, all right. So we showed up, and again, here's a little old pink sheet company trying to buy this big mammoth property that literally Pacific Energy, which is a public company that went bankruptcy, had borrowed $450 million in debt 2 years prior to us purchasing them. So you can
Wow.
imagine they borrowed all this money on all these assets.
Mhm.
And here I am trying to buy for $1.5 million in bankruptcy because in 08, 09, nobody was financing anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
The group at Goldman Sachs that financed this got fired. So they didn't even credit bid on the stuff. That's how bad it was. And
Mhm.
so long story short, we got lucky in an auction. It started off at 3.5 and went to 3.7, went to 4 million. They stopped, called their board. They came back and got a more approval to keep bidding. I stopped about 4.4 million and said, I only have $1.5 million. I'm bidding 4.4. My attorney's like, what are you doing? You don't have the money. I was like, well, I've got another week to close. If we win the bid,
I'll
I've
find
already
the
told
money.
Cheryl, yeah, I'll figure it out. And that was probably the most boldest thing I've ever done in my whole
That was,
life.
I was going to say, that's some cojones right there,
Yeah, my,
Scott.
my attorney's like, you don't come up, you lose all this money. I said, I understand, I get it. But so we ended up winning the bid for a little less than $5 million on these Alaska assets. And it was one of the greatest feelings ever. I didn't have the money to close, but I had a week to do it. So again, called the old friends and family around, circled everybody up, and got the deal closed. And our first well, Kevin, that we drilled, and you can imagine we're a Tennessee oil and gas company. We're producing now about 100 barrels a day of production. So we've grown it from 8 barrels to like 108 barrels. So we've 10x the growth. The first well we drilled in Alaska came in, and it was a rework. It wasn't even a complete well, it was a rework. We spent about $2 million additional, and it
Okay.
came in at 1,100 barrels a day. So all
Wow.
of a sudden, boom, now all of a sudden our revenue goes from 100 barrels a day to 1,200 barrels a day, 1,100 plus 100, and we just skyrocketed. It just kind of set the pace for checking all the boxes, meeting all these things, and again, we grew it up, and I had a good 5 years. So we took it from pink sheet non-reporting to bulletin board. Was able to ring the Nasdaq bell. Was able to ring the New York Stock Exchange bell. I hired a gentleman. 5 years on the road doing institutional road shows is a tough road. Had kids, twins, going to school, and it's just tough being away from them. So I hired a CEO to take my place, thinking he was going to take it from not. And again, I sold stock at 10 cents a share to all my friends and family to raise capital to buy this asset, right? And I
Yeah.
tell them, hey, it's pink sheet. You can't control the variables. But when you double your money, when it goes to 20 cents, 30 cents, just sell out, get your principal back. That's kind of been my theory about everything. And so we call them the Miller millionaires. We made a bunch of millionaires, but I hired a guy that to take my place, thinking he was going to take it from. I mean, his resume was amazing, thinking he was going to take it from $9, what I built for over 5 or 6 years. I was thinking he was going to take it from $9 to 20, and he took it from $9 to bankruptcy in about 14 months. And so
Wow.
I had about 9 million shares with options and grants and all that stuff. I never sold a single share, so I lost almost 80 plus $1 million. Painful lesson, painful experience, but at the same time, I learned a lot. I made a bunch of people a bunch of money, and so you take those life lessons and grow it and do it again. So here we are 6 years later with another company that we raised money at 10 cents a share. It's trading at 20 cents a share, and it's been as high as $1.50. But we're building the team, building the product that solves a problem.
Yep.
And if you figure that part of it out, then the rest of it takes care of itself. And all we want to do is raise money, save lives in schools and hospitals and transportation and have fun while doing it.
Yeah. I'll tell you, Scott, right now I'm sitting here going, dang, I sure am glad I asked that question.
Yeah.
What a
Well,
story,
yeah,
man.
yeah. One of the lenders early on that I was trying to borrow $1 million from when we were at 10 cents a share to buy a rig to do some more drilling. And I was going to give him like 1 million options at a dime. And every time I see him in Knoxville, he's like, man, that was the worst deal I'd ever did because our balance sheet was terrible. I wouldn't loan this money either if you looked at our balance sheet. But that's why you're public. I mean, if you're losing money, you can't go to banks because they only want to loan you money when you're making money.
Mhm.
And being public, you can raise money from friends and family, sell shares of stock, and grow, take that capital and grow it. And so I've always liked the private to public, small cap, growing, the working man's friend. Like, anybody can be public. I can take a roofing company public. I can take a HVAC company public. I mean, you don't have to be this big conglomerate. I mean, Facebook started out in the garage, right? Just one
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it was four guys. But so I always thought being public, you had to just be huge. And I always deal
Mhm.
in like the little bitty guys. And so I
Yeah.
like being small and I like being the underdog.
Yeah. Wow. That's
Yeah.
fascinating. That's
Yeah.
fascinating.
Crazy.
Well, okay, so now we've got a little bit of context set
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Um, I'm going to switch our conversation, switch gears on it just a little bit, and I'm going to ask, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, relationships are everything. Your sphere of influence is everything. Your
Yeah.
circle of influence is everything. So if you're having a good day, look around the people that you're friends with. If you're having a bad day, look around the people that you're running with. Because I
Yeah.
can tell you, if I've had friends that are like, man, I'm just going through a tough time in life, and I'm like, well, tell me about your life. Tell me who you're with, what you're doing, and I was like, well, maybe this is not the right person you need to be with, but. I go back to Charlie Lobaddy, my longtime high school friend, CFO. He introduced me to Ron Berkowitz. When I watched the movie, I got to have somebody to educate me to how to get to the next level.
Yeah.
And so it was Ron, Big Ron, we call him. First time I met him in New York, flew up. He had a driver at the airport waiting for me to pick me up to take me to this fancy restaurant. So literally the first night I met him, I get out of the car and he looked at the driver and he said, "What are you doing for the next 3 days?" And the driver said, "I don't know." And he handed him a big old wad of cash. He said, "You're with him for the next 3 days because we got a bunch of meetings." And so Ron Bergovitz, and he worked, with one of the Victor Posner, which is one of the original corporate raiders on Wall Street.
Okay.
Victor Posner and that whole family would go buy companies and literally on Wall Street, and you do like they would take them over and cut them up into pieces, which was kind of the other side of the business, which is where Wall Street was about, like
Hmm.
getting controls, private equity, buying them and fixing them and helping them. And so Ron literally introduced me to a multitude of investment bankers that he had like a 30-year relationship. So instead of me building as a young kid, living in Knoxville, working out of New York, talking like a hillbilly. Like we look good until we open our mouth. And like, where you from, Texas or Tennessee? I'm like, Tennessee, good choice. But that guy literally, Charlie introduced me to Ron, changed my life, and then Ron introduced me to people like when we were raising capital, $50,000, $100,000 a time. Ron would introduce me to people like. Then we started raising capital, 5 million, 20 million, 30 million at a time. So with one phone call, what would have taken me years to do,
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got all of his street cred just by being associated with him. And so when
Yes.
we walk into a room, bring a private company in the room that needed $5 or $10 million, they weren't looking at me. They were looking at Ron and said, Ron's bringing this deal in. It's got to be a good deal. And we did that over and over and over. And again, through all those private companies that we took public, there's two ways to go public. One's the original way, the S1, file a S1 registration statement, hire attorneys, auditors, bankers. It's $2 to $5 million process in real
Okay.
money. The other way is what we call the reverse triangular merger, which
Okay.
was take a private company, find a public company that's out there that for whatever reason didn't have the right product, didn't have the right business, didn't have the right management team, didn't have something was missing, and they just never could get out of their own way. And they just went out of business. They didn't go bankrupt. They just stopped paying their quarterly filings, stopped doing business, and just died. And
Okay.
we would find those companies and call the CEO that was typically the founder or had the most shares and said, hey, we want to buy your non-reporting public company and give you cash for your shares. And that would be anywhere from 50 grand to 500 grand. And
Okay.
all of a sudden, for 50 grand to 500 grand, we could be public. So we could, it's like a
Wow.
triangle. So here's public. You set up a subsidiary down here, and here's the private company. So it just literally just reverses the private reverses into the public, changes the name, and all of a sudden, instead of going through all the SEC comments and doing all this stuff to go public, you're already public. Now you
You're
just got to
public.
work on you just got to work on now you're a public company. Now you just got to work on getting your books audited,
Mhm.
cleaning up your books, dropping a product that solves a problem, building the management team, building the board, and just what I call checking boxes.
Yeah.
So, like for Safe Space Global, it's a 7 year deal. We went public via reverse merger. Started out as Indie Living, which was short for independent living,
Okay.
letting people live longer in their house. That was 2016 and 18. We went public via reverse merger. So all of a sudden we had a shareholder exchange.
Mhm.
So nobody pays any taxes. And all of a sudden we went from being private to public. Doesn't mean anything now. Now just got to pay quarterly filing fees, quarterly audit fees. It's just more expense. But by being public, I was able to go back to my original shareholders, and we call them the millionaires from the last company.
Mhm.
Hey, I've got a new company. They were wondering what I was doing. This is what I'm doing next. They all write checks. They all get shares at 5 and 10 cents a share. It's restricted shares, so they got to hold them for a year or two. Now it's
Okay.
down to 6 months. The SEC has changed that to like only a 6 month hold period now. And so that's how this company currently has evolved. And so that's what's so exciting
Wow.
about safe spaces. Like again, just over and over, and and to uplist on the Nasdaq in New York, they are changing the rules and laws literally every day, and so the equity requirements are changing. Now to go public on the Nasdaq, if you're just a private company, they require $15 million worth of shareholders equity
Okay.
versus four, and so because we're public and PCAOB fully reporting, we're able to get in under the $4 million shareholders equity. Means you got to have cash or equity in your company,
Mhm.
and you got to have enough shareholders. You got to have market cap. It's got all these 6 requirements, but we've met 5 out of 6. So that's
Okay.
now the last box is just the $2 share box, and so you can reverse exchange your shares and do like a 10 for 1 or 20 for 1 and do that next month. But I like to do it the old fashioned way. I just like to tell the story, grow the company, grow the product, grow the shareholder base, and let it just accrete up to $2 on its own. And that's what
Mhm.
we're doing, which is
Wow.
fun. But yeah,
Yeah.
that one guy changed my life, man, just forever. I'll just, uh, again, just, and it really it's just the relationships that he had, the street cred that he had
Yeah.
that
Yep.
because I was associated with him,
Yep.
proximity to power we talk about. And,
Yep.
I was associated with him and they associated good stuff. And so
Yep.
that's how we got it. So
Yeah.
kind of cool.
I mean, and what you shared right there, that is it, when it comes to relationships, because all the trust that he had already created with all those people.
Yes.
Now, because he brought you in, now that
Yes.
trust
Yes.
just transferred right over to you too.
That's it.
That's the
That's
guy,
it.
you know,
That's it.
and
That's it.
and as long as you don't mess it up,
That's right.
you can just
That's
keep
right.
rolling with that.
Yeah.
And I mean, that is one heck of a powerful story that conveys right there the power of right relationships.
It does, and yeah, and as part of setting the table to go to uplist to the New York American, which is $2 a share. Coach Michael Burt, which is one of the independent board members, when I interviewed
Mhm.
him last year, didn't know him. Just and again another introduction.
Mhm.
The first thing he said, "Do you want me for my money or do you want me for my influence?" I looked at him. I said, "I want you for both."
How about
You
both?
know,
Yeah,
you speak
that'd be my
crowd.
answer.
I
Why not
want
both?
both. I want you for money and influence. And so we were going to do a $5 million raise to meet the shareholders' equity requirements. And when he came on board, the stock was like 6 cents a share. And so we did a raise. We were raising money at 10 cents a share when it was trading for 6 cents a share on the open market. People said, "Why am I paying you 10 cents when it's trading at 6?" I said, "Well, it's called the float. And if you want to buy as much as we're selling, it's going to be more than 10 cents a share." So he came on board last year. Has been a great help. And again, because of his relationship with his street cred, we were able to raise 10 million bucks in less than 6 months, and all those shareholders are going to be happy.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, wow.
Crazy, crazy.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, once again, it's all about relationships, right relationships.
Yeah, right. And the
And
mindset, like the quantum thinking. So in the sign company, I could have built it organically, went out and cold called, which I did. So I love selling. I love raising capital. I love structured finance. So I cold called, sold signs, but I went out and hired like the first sales guy, and he was a great sales guy. He had a book of business of about $2 million. He said, "Hey, why don't we hire Al? Al has all the Ryan steakhouses." And Al said, "Well, why don't we hire Jim? Jim has all the McDonald's." All of a sudden, instead of me doing it one off organically, we were growing organically, but we were hiring our way to $10 million, like the salespeople,
yeah,
which is kind of wild. And so I've taken that trait in safe space. Instead of me going out and individually calling on schools one on one, we're calling on group purchasing organizations for the schools that have, like we just put a press release out this week. The firm that is going to be our channel partner is into 13,000 schools. So instead
okay.
of us going to those 13,000 schools, we're going in with his street cred,
Yep, yep,
his clients for the last 10 years,
yep.
and we're giving them something that they don't have. So they
Yeah,
have the incident management report. Once an incident happens, it locks the school down and it goes to all this back of the house stuff. We have the AI solution up front that says, all right, if somebody brandishes a weapon in the parking lot, our artificial agent, our AI safe space SAM, we call it, sees the weapon, detects the person,
yep.
identifies the weapon, and alerts 911. And so it's kind of we're the front end. So we're predictive analytics versus reactive. Cameras
Yes.
in schools show what's happened. We don't want that to happen. So we're multimodal, AI first, safety for schools, safety for prisons, safety for, correctional facilities,
Yeah,
hospitals. And so,
yeah.
to get up and run a company that you're helping save lives in schools. My daughter's just graduated college, got her master's, and she's a first grade teacher. And when I was growing up, all we had to worry about were tornadoes and bad storms and lining up in the hallway. Now
Mhm.
it's bomb threats, it's shootings, it's knives, it's all
A lot
kinds of stuff.
more
And
these
so
days. Yeah.
yeah, so we see the future is getting rid of all that, like going back to normalcy. Like if you're going to come to this school, we're going to detect that gun. We're going to get you out in the parking lot before you get into the school with
Yeah.
AI technology. And so that's
Yeah.
what's exciting. Yeah. It's changing
Wow.
lives. Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow. For anyone who might be listening to this and kind of like me going just like, man, you've got some incredible stories, Scott.
It's great.
And
So I got
and
these
it's
gray hairs.
but for anyone who might be listening to this saying to themselves, man, Kev, I really like Scott. I like who he is. I like how he shows up.
Yeah.
And man, the stuff he shares got me thinking. And
Yeah.
maybe they're thinking like, man, I'd like to find out more about what he's doing or what
Yeah.
any resources, any websites we can share with them.
Yeah, so safespaceglobal.ai
Okay.
is
Okay.
is for the public company. We're,
Yep.
like I said, PCA will be audited. All everything that's public is out there. So love to go out and take a look at our management company, see the problems are changing, and become a shareholder.
Okay. Okay.
Pitchequityfund.com. So
Okay.
pitchequityfund.com is our private real estate fund and
Okay.
that to invest in real estate and businesses. So literally I get up every day, run the public company, look at one or a few, look at a few real estate deals, pick the best ones, put investors' money in it. So if you want long-term private money with illiquid investments, but as part of your portfolio, Pitch Equity is the way. And then if you want liquid capital and long-term growth for a public company, then say spaceglobal.ai. And so
Okay.
a lot of our shareholders literally co-invest in both things. And so it's kind of
Gotcha.
exciting. Yeah. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Well,
Yes.
Scott, is there any last thing that you feel led to share before we call it a wrap?
I think that's about it. Just literally in whatever you do, just make sure that just get up every day and understand the people that you're running with and doing business with and having fun with and your proximity to your network. They say
Yep.
what is it? They say your network is your net worth, and I truly
Network
believe
is
that.
your
And
net
again,
worth. Yeah.
yeah. And I remember when I sold the first, you know, commercial property 35 years ago. I made a $8,000 check, and I thought that was the biggest thing in the world, but my mind wasn't big enough because I was too young.
Yeah.
And as I got older, I was like, is I have to do the same due diligence on a $50 million real estate deal in Chattanooga called The Bend as I have to do on a $5 million Starbucks that we developed in Alpharetta, Georgia.
Mhm.
It's the same boxes. It's environmentals, it's legal, it's title, it's surveys, it's Alta. It's the same boxes. It's
Yeah.
just different zeros. And
Yeah.
there's no, just add a few more zeros. My son's in commercial insurance right now. I got one in commercial insurance and one in commercial real estate. And he's like, man, I was out today, cold calling. I said, did you, pass out 100 cards? Did you knock on 100 doors today? Did you get that? No, I've got 10 done. I said, well, don't leave till you get like 90 more. Like, don't come home till you get it done.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to do it for you. And
Yeah.
it doesn't come easy. I mean, nothing, everybody thinks overnight success. I'm in Nashville, so all these country music stars think it's an overnight success, but those guys have been grinding for years and years and years. And all of a
Absolutely.
sudden, all the work that they've done in the background all
Yep.
of a sudden pays off, and it's no different. It's no
Yes.
different. There's no
Yeah.
easy way. Coach
That's
Burt
right.
was working 50, 60, 80 hours a week. It took him 13 years to get to that championship. But once he got to that championship, then things changed.
Yes.
And that's all I'm saying. Just do what you love what you do, and go out and get it. It's the grind. We
Yeah.
asked for it.
That's right.
We asked for it. So
That's right. Wouldn't trade it for nothing. That is the
wouldn't
life of
trade it
an
for
entrepreneur.
nothing. I'm on I'm on the phone from time I leave Nashville till I get to Knoxville and I come in to the house. I'm still on the phone. My wife says, "Can you give me 20 minutes just for dinner?" I was like, "Sure." And I mean, but she understands that. Like she's the best wife in the world because she understands who I am, what I'm growing and who I'm doing it with. And that's
Yep.
that's probably the best thing. You got to
Yeah.
have a good wife to support you because if you don't, I don't need to come home and get beat up at home. Home is my
Yeah.
safe space.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
hence safe space. So
Yeah.
it's good. Yeah. Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
I love it.
Well, Scott, I want to thank you so
Yep.
much for taking the time to just have this conversation today.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you. And I'm excited to get this out there and share it with a lot of folks. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, Kevin, thank you. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to meeting you in person one day, and I'm
Yeah,
sure that'll happen soon.
absolutely.
Yeah.